There exists a profound, often unsettling truth about human interaction, a truth that Carl Jung, in his relentless exploration of the psyche, hinted at with an almost dangerous clarity. It's the uncomfortable realization that much of what we perceive as strength, the urge to defend, to explain, to engage every challenge, is in fact a profound surrender of our inner sovereignty. We are taught to meet external pressures with immediate outward responses, believing this to be the path to validation or control. Yet this very impulse often leads us into a labyrinth of external dependency, draining our vital psychic energy and obscuring the authentic self. This video will unveil a counterintuitive path, a Jungian approach to psychological power that liberates you from the incessant demands of the external world, allowing you to reclaim your inner landscape and move through life with an unshakable, quiet authority. Prepare to discover how true power lies not in reaction, but in a deliberate, conscious non-engagement, transforming your relationship with conflict and external judgment. Consider the individual perpetually caught in the shadow play of others' expectations and projections. Perhaps it's the professional who, after a critical remark from a colleague, spends days mentally rehearsing rebuttals, allowing the external slight to consume their focus and creativity. Or the person who, confronted by a misunderstanding, feels compelled to meticulously explain every nuance of their actions, only to find their words twisted or dismissed. Jung understood this dynamic deeply, recognizing how the ego, when undeveloped, becomes a battleground for external forces. Each time we engage in these reactive cycles, defending our persona, justifying our intentions, or battling perceived slights, we are, in essence, feeding the very shadows that seek to diminish us. We expend precious psychic energy, the very fuel for individuation, on external skirmishes that offer no true resolution, only a deeper entanglement in the collective unconscious's dramas. This superficial engagement prevents us from confronting the deeper internal work necessary for genuine psychological resilience, leaving us vulnerable to every passing judgment and provocation. This profound understanding of psychological power finds its roots not just in Machiavellian strategy, but resonates deeply with Carl Jung's analytical psychology. Jung meticulously mapped the inner world, revealing how our psychic energy, or libido in his broader sense, is constantly at play. He understood that when we react impulsively to external stimuli, we are often operating from an unintegrated ego, allowing the persona to be dictated by the collective unconscious or the projections of others. True strength for Jung emerged from the process of individuation, the journey of becoming a whole, integrated self distinct from the collective. This involves a conscious differentiation between the self and the external world, recognizing that our inner state is not merely a reflection of outward events. While Machiavelli focused on external control and influence, Jung's insights provide the internal architecture for such control, emphasizing that mastery over others begins with mastery over oneself. He distinguished the authentic self from the ego's reactive tendencies, highlighting that our true power lies in aligning with the self rather than being swayed by every external wind. The perils of constant reaction and explanation when viewed through a Jungian lens extend far beyond mere wasted energy. They represent a significant impediment to the individuation process itself. Each time we allow external provocations to dictate our internal state, we reinforce the dominance of the persona and the collective unconscious over the authentic self. This constant outward focus prevents us from engaging with our own inner world, our dreams, symbols, and the wisdom of the unconscious. Jung warned that neglecting this inner dialogue leads to a fragmented psyche, where the shadow remains unintegrated and the self remains largely unknown. This external dependency creates a fragile sense of self, susceptible to anxiety, resentment, and a pervasive feeling of being unmoored, unable to tap into the deep wellspring of personal meaning and purpose that individuation promises. The true cost is the forfeiture of our unique psychological destiny.
The myriad ways in which we fall prey to reactive patterns can be categorized, much like Jung categorized the archetypes of the collective unconscious. We see the defender of the persona who feels compelled to explain every action to maintain a flawless public image, fearing the judgment of the collective. Then there's the shadow boxer, constantly engaging in verbal sparring, projecting their own unacknowledged aggressions onto others, and mistaking conflict for connection. Another manifestation is the approval seeker, whose internal barometer is entirely calibrated by external validation, leading to a constant need to react in ways that garner praise or avoid criticism. These are not merely personality quirks, but represent unintegrated aspects of the psyche, where the ego has not yet learned to differentiate itself from the demands of the external world. Recognizing these patterns within ourselves and others is crucial, for it allows us to identify when we are operating from a place of unconscious compulsion rather than conscious choice, thus illuminating the path towards greater psychological freedom. The specific dangers of failing to cultivate this inner detachment, as illuminated by Jungian thought, are profound and multifaceted.
Erosion of the authentic self. Constant external reaction prevents the development and expression of one's unique individuality, trapping the psyche within the confines of the collective's expectations. Depletion of psychic energy. Engaging in endless explanations and defenses drains the vital libido needed for inner growth, creativity, and the process of individuation. Reinforcement of the shadow. By externalizing conflict and seeking external validation, we avoid confronting and integrating our own shadow aspects, leading to projections and unconscious self-sabotage. Loss of inner authority. Allowing external opinions to dictate our emotional state surrenders our internal locus of control, making us perpetually vulnerable to manipulation and external circumstances. Stagnation of individuation. The journey towards wholeness requires a withdrawal of projections and a focus on inner work. Constant external engagement halts this essential process. Creation of false connections. Relationships built on reactive patterns and mutual projections lack genuine depth and often lead to resentment and misunderstanding rather than true connection. Perpetual emotional turmoil. Without a strong, differentiated ego, the individual remains a plaything of external events, experiencing a constant flux of emotions dictated by others' actions and words. The path to reclaiming psychological power, as envisioned through a Jungian lens, is not one of aggressive confrontation, but of conscious disengagement and inner cultivation. It is a process of individuation applied directly to our interactions. This systematic approach involves several key phases. Phase 1. The witnessing self, conscious observation. Begin by cultivating the capacity for self-observation. Instead of immediately reacting, pause. Become the detached observer of your own emotional responses. Jung emphasized the importance of bringing unconscious processes into consciousness. Ask yourself, what is truly being triggered here? Is this an external event or an internal complex being activated? This pause creates a vital space between stimulus and response. Practical technique. Practice mindfulness meditation, focusing on observing thoughts and emotions without judgment. Keep a reaction journal to note down instances where you felt compelled to react and analyze the underlying triggers. Phase 2. Differentiating ego from self, inner authority. Recognize that your ego's immediate urge to defend or explain is often a protective mechanism, but not necessarily the voice of your deeper self. The self, for Jung, is the organizing center of the psyche, guiding towards wholeness. Learn to distinguish between the ego's reactive impulses and the calm, steady wisdom of the self. Practical technique. Engage in active imagination, dialoguing with the parts of yourself that feel threatened or compelled to react. Ask what the deeper purpose of the reaction is and if there's a more integrated response available. Phase 4. Withdrawal of projections, taking back your power. Understand that much of what provokes us externally is often a projection of our own unintegrated shadow material.
When someone criticizes you, consider if their words touch upon an insecurity you already hold. By not reacting, you refuse to engage in the projection, allowing the other person's shadow to remain their own and preventing it from becoming yours. Practical technique. When feeling provoked, mentally ask, what part of this accusation or situation resonates with an unacknowledged aspect of myself? This introspection helps to withdraw the projection. Phase 4. Cultivating the inner sanctuary, psychological autonomy. Develop an internal space that is impervious to external noise. This is your psychological fortress where your values, purpose, and sense of self reside, undisturbed by the shifting sands of external opinion. This sanctuary is built through consistent inner work and a clear understanding of your own boundaries. Practical technique. Regularly engage in activities that nourish your soul and reinforce your sense of self, such as creative expression, spending time in nature, or deep reflection independent of external validation. Consider the stark contrast between two approaches to external pressure, illustrating the power of this Jungian path. On one hand, we have the historical figure of Carl Jung himself when confronted with the intense scrutiny and often hostile criticism following his break with Freud. Instead of engaging in endless public debates or attempting to explain every nuance of his evolving theories to a skeptical world, Jung largely withdrew. He focused on his inner work, his research, and the development of his own unique psychological system. His success wasn't in winning every argument, but in building a monumental body of work that eventually spoke for itself, attracting those who were genuinely ready to understand. His non-reaction to immediate detractors allowed him to preserve his psychic energy for profound creative output, ultimately establishing a legacy far more enduring than any fleeting academic skirmish. Conversely, imagine a hypothetical individual, Eleanor, who, after a public disagreement with a peer, feels compelled to launch a full-scale campaign to discredit her opponent. She spends countless hours crafting emails, engaging in gossip, and trying to rally support. Her failure lies not necessarily in the outcome of the dispute, but in the profound internal cost. She becomes consumed by the external conflict, her creativity stifled, her relationships strained by her obsessive focus on proving herself right. Her constant reaction and explanation, born from an unintegrated ego, ultimately prevent her from moving forward with her own life's purpose, leaving her trapped in a cycle of external validation and resentment.
While the journey towards psychological power is deeply individual, Jung was clear that we are not isolated monads. The environment and the nature of our connections play a crucial role in supporting or hindering the individuation process. Just as certain environments can foster neurosis, others can facilitate psychological growth. The key is to cultivate relationships and environments that honor your developing self, rather than those that constantly demand a reactive ego. Identifying nurturing connections. Seek out individuals who appreciate your authenticity, who can hold space for your inner process without judgment, and who do not rely on you to fulfill their own unintegrated projections. These are the relationships that allow for genuine mirroring and growth, where you can be seen for who you are, not for who others want you to be. Cultivating a supportive inner circle. This involves consciously choosing to spend your psychic energy on those who genuinely contribute to your wholeness. These are the people who understand that your silence is not indifference, but often a sign of deep internal processing, and who respect your boundaries without needing constant explanation. Navigating challenging interactions. For unavoidable interactions with those who tend to provoke, the protocol is one of conscious detachment. Engage only with the necessary facts and refuse to be drawn into emotional dramas or power struggles. Remember that their attempts to elicit a reaction are often their own unintegrated shadow at play. By not reacting, you deny their projection a landing place, allowing it to return to its source. Creating an inner sanctuary in relationships. This means establishing clear boundaries that protect your psychic space.
It's about recognizing that you are not responsible for managing others' emotional states, nor are you obligated to explain your every move. This creates a psychological container where your energy is conserved for your own growth. Embracing this Jungian approach to psychological power initiates a profound journey of transformation, moving from a state of external dependency to one of inner autonomy. This journey unfolds in distinct yet often cyclical stages. Stage 1. The awakening to external control. Initially, there's a dawning awareness of how much your emotional life has been dictated by external events and the expectations of others. This can be a painful realization, akin to Jung's confrontation with the shadow, as you recognize patterns of reactivity and self-betrayal. Stage 2, the practice of deliberate non-reaction. This is the active phase of implementing never react, never explain, just ignore. It requires conscious effort to pause, observe, and choose silence or indifference over impulsive engagement. This stage builds the muscle of emotional sovereignty. Stage 3, the reclamation of psychic energy. As you cease to expend energy on external battles, you begin to notice a profound increase in your internal resources. This freed-up energy can then be redirected towards creative pursuits, deeper self-reflection, and the conscious integration of unconscious material. Stage 4, the emergence of inner authority. With sustained practice, your sense of self becomes less fragile and more rooted in your own internal compass. You develop an unshakable inner authority, where your decisions and emotional states are governed by your authentic self rather than external pressures. Stage 5, the gift of authentic presence. The ultimate transformation is the ability to move through the world with a quiet, magnetic presence. Your interactions become more intentional, your words carry greater weight, and your silence becomes a powerful statement. This is the gift of individuation, a contribution of a more whole, integrated being to the collective, inspiring others not through overt action, but through the sheer force of your self-possession. You become a beacon of psychological freedom, demonstrating that true power emanates from within. The path to psychological power, guided by Jungian principles, is not without its snares and requires continuous vigilance. The unconscious, as Jung taught, is vast and ever-present, and old patterns have a way of resurfacing. The lure of the collective. One significant pitfall is the constant pressure from the collective unconscious to conform, to react, to explain. Society often rewards outward displays of emotion and engagement, making the path of non-reaction feel isolating or even rebellious. The temptation to revert to old, familiar, though ultimately draining behaviors can be strong, especially when faced with intense social pressure or direct provocation. The unintegrated shadows return. Even after significant inner work, aspects of the shadow can re-emerge, manifesting as an irrational urge to defend oneself, to seek external validation, or to engage in petty conflicts. These moments are not failures, but rather signals that deeper integration work is still needed.
Calm. Misinterpretation of silence. Others may misinterpret your non-reaction as indifference, arrogance, or even weakness. This can lead to misunderstandings or further attempts to provoke. The challenge is to remain steadfast in your chosen path without feeling compelled to explain your philosophy to those who are not ready to understand it. Maintenance practices. To sustain this state of psychological sovereignty, continuous maintenance is essential. This includes regular self-reflection, journaling, active imagination, and dream analysis, as Jung advocated, are crucial for staying connected to your inner world and identifying emerging complexes or unintegrated material. Boundary reinforcement. Continuously assess and reinforce your psychological boundaries. This means consciously choosing who and what gets access to your attention and emotional energy. Cultivating inner stillness.
Practices like meditation, spending time in nature, or engaging in creative pursuits help to maintain a strong connection to the self, providing a stable anchor amidst external chaos. Conscious disengagement. Periodically review your interactions and consciously disengage from those that consistently drain your energy without contributing to your growth. We began by challenging the conventional wisdom of strength, suggesting that true power lies not in reaction, but in a profound Jungian non-engagement. You have now seen how the relentless pursuit of external validation and the compulsion to explain or defend oneself are not signs of strength, but rather indicators of an unintegrated ego, draining your vital psychic energy and hindering your journey toward individuation. The problem of external provocation is in fact an advanced characteristic, an opportunity to deepen your connection to the self and manifest your unique potential. You are not merely a passive recipient of external forces. You are the sovereign of your own psyche. By embracing the principles of never react, never explain, just ignore, you are not becoming cold or detached, but rather deeply rooted in your authentic self, capable of navigating the complexities of the world with an unshakable inner calm. This is the path to becoming genuinely untouchable, not because you are invulnerable, but because you choose what touches you. Your journey begins now. Engage with your inner world. Share in the comments below, what is one situation where you felt compelled to react or explain, and how might applying these principles have shifted the outcome? Your insights deepen our collective understanding. Deepen your understanding. If this exploration of psychological power resonates with you, subscribe to our channel for more content that delves into the depths of the human psyche and practical wisdom from modern life. Continue the quest for wholeness. For a deeper dive into the foundational concepts discussed today, watch our video on Jung's shadow integration, embracing your hidden self, a crucial step in building the inner architecture of true power. Remember, the most profound transformations begin with a single conscious choice. Choose your peace. Choose your power. Choose yourself.